Hello and welcome to The Last Word. As Arvind Kejriwal and Subramanian Swamy make headlines, we ask, are they hit-and-run practitioners or are they capable of a sustained campaign? And is their influence limited to large metropolises or is it nationwide? That's with Subramanian Swamy himself, Professor of Politics Pushpesh Pant, a member of India Against Corruption Preeti Menon, and the well-known author and former CEO Gurcharan Das. Pushpesh Pant, Arvind Kejriwal has repeatedly said his job is to raise allegations, it's for others to go to court, he won't. And that's certainly how he's handled the cases he's brought against Vadra, Gadkari and Reliance. But I put it to you, is this half-heartedness? Does this reveal an enthusiasm to wound, but a reluctance or an inability to go further?
I would say half-heartedness, because whatever Arvind is doing, he is doing it with some strategy well in his mind, and he is doing it almost wholeheartedly. Even if you call what you call hit and run, he is hitting and running repeatedly, and there is a method in this madness, because he is not actually running away anywhere. He is hitting. He is, if you may extend the metaphor, doing rash and negligent driving habitually, but he is leaving a lot of blood on the coal tar, which has to be washed up.
But and the interesting thing is that you compare him to rash and negligent driving, which is the opposite of responsible driving.
No, I'm saying that most people look at it as rash and negligent driving.
Gurcharan Das, Subramanian Swamy, on the other hand, has always taken his cases to court. He did that famously with Chidambaram and 2G, and although he lost at the first stage, he's determined to go ahead, and he's already made it clear he's going to do it with the allegations he brought against Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi yesterday. So does that suggest that Swamy has greater confidence in the allegations he brings compared to Kejriwal?
Well, certainly if you take it to court and something is investigated, charges are filed, and then if there's a trial, at least you get somewhere. When you just make allegations and leave them alone, then where does that leave you?
Quite right. And are you therefore suggesting that an allegation that's taken no further than a press conference amounts to an element of certain irresponsibility? Would you go that far?
Well, yeah, whether you want to call it irresponsibility, but certainly there's a lack of, you don't feel satisfied as a person who's watching what's going on. You want something to go further. I mean, we want, for example, the 2G trial of Raja to come to some kind of closure.
Okay. Let me put
look at Rajat Gupta's trial.
Absolutely, but let's not go on to Rajat Gupta. Let's not go to Rajat Gupta. That's a deflection. Let's stick to our subject instead. Subramanian Swamy, if one looks at this from the point of view of principle, is it incumbent on a crusader who makes allegations of corruption to go whole hog, i.e. go all the way to court, or is it acceptable for allegations to be made and then left hanging in the air at a press conference?
Well, the reason I started going to court is that I found the general climate in the country that one of hopelessness, that the corruption is now permanent, it's a way of life, nobody can do anything about it, no minister will ever be prosecuted, that sort of thing. To correct that and bring about some hope, that's why I went to court.
So you thought it was essential to complete the process by going to court?
Absolutely, because the people will just get demoralized if you just make charges, shoot and scoot, you see.
Shoot and scoot demoralizes people and achieves no further purpose.
That's right.
Let me put that to you, Preeti Menon. You're a member of India Against Corruption. You're a close colleague of Arvind Kejriwal. When allegations are simply raised at press conferences and not taken further, they end up casting aspersions on the people you've targeted. They end up suggesting to the world that the person you've targeted is guilty. And now the onus is on the person to prove his innocence. And given the slowness as well as the cumbersome nature of the Indian legal profession, that becomes a very difficult thing to do. Is it fair and is it morally right to simply make allegations and stop there?
Karan, when a newspaper exposes a scam, do we say that the newspaper has to punish the culprits and only then can it expose another scam? There are so many scams happening and we are bringing them to light, and we are doing it with great amount of responsibility. with a great amount of proof, and we expect that there should be inquiries taken place against them, and these inquiries should be constituted by the government. But obviously the government is fighting shy of all inquiries.
Can I interrupt? You're making a very interesting comparison. You're justifying yourself by comparing yourselves to newspapers, but good journalism usually requires newspapers to give an equal opportunity to the person who they're exposing at the same time as they carry that expose. Arvind Kejriwal pointedly refused to give that chance to Robert Vadra before he went public. So can you really compare yourselves to newspapers? Because when newspapers don't do that, it's considered to be bad journalism.
See, it's not here that we are here for a journalistic award. What we are trying to draw a parallel is that there are lots of scams going on in the country, and we are bringing out the scams in front of the Aam Aadmi and breaking the walls of silence. We are breaking the Omerta codes about speaking about so many of these hallowed people who must not be spoken about. Okay, so we brought it out into the public domain. Right from the beginning, we have said that going to the judiciary is a very good option, but unfortunately, the investigation which the judiciary asks to be done goes to the CBI, which is again in control of the political parties. So the whole movement started by us saying that we need a Lokpal.
Can I interrupt one more time? Can I interrupt one more time? Forgive me. You're making a reasonably good argument why you don't go to court. But remember, Prashant Bhushan is with you, and Prashant Bhushan has made a career of taking things successfully to the Supreme Court. He and Subramanian Swamy are together responsible for the way the whole 2G matter has been handled by the court. How do you explain the fact that in 2G, Prashant Bhushan goes to court, he chooses to go to court on 1,001 other issues, but suddenly over Reliance, over Gadkari, over Vadra, you're shying away from the same court?
Nobody is shying away over here, it's not about shying away. We do believe that we should go to the judiciary, but the number of scams and the extent of the scams is so huge that we could spend our entire lifetimes in court and not a single person gets punished.
Okay.
Not one person gets indicted. They may go into custody, judicial custody for a small time or police custody, but nobody is in prison.
Okay.
And therefore we say that the system has to change.
Okay.
And until the system changes, we are going to expose them.
You're making a good point. Let me bring in Pushpeshpant. Do you accept the reasons given by Preeti Menon why they choose not to go to court?
Oh, of course I do. I think the well thought of strategy of ISI is this: they are not interested in anybody getting punished in a court of law. They are interested in raking up enough muck, so some of the muck will stick, and ultimately in the Janta Ki Adalat, when the election comes, some people will get punished. They will not go to jail, but they will lose their seats.
It's interesting the language you use. They're interested in raking up muck, and some muck will stick. In other words, what they're really seeking to do is, by fair means or foul, defame people.
No means are fair or foul, either in love, war, and politics.
What then do you say to the point that Anna Hazare made? It was quoted in today's or yesterday's Indian Express. He says that Kejriwal should target people one at a time. And secondly, he says he should continue with those he's targeted until he's achieved his logical conclusion, neither of which Kejriwal seems to be doing.
If Mr. Kejriwal were likely to follow Anna's advice, they would still be together, not separate. So I think Anna is doing backseat driving for Kejriwal, which this driver is not going to accept.
Anna's criticism, even if it's implied criticism, doesn't carry much weight with you.
Not any longer.
Kusharandas, is there a danger that this targeting of politicians, which has virtually become a weekly event, could A, become predictable, and B, as a result, it could lose its novelty value, and then the impact will start to diminish, and worse, the people being targeted might then start uniting and carrying out their own backlash. Is there a danger of that happening?
Yeah, well, I worry about that, because the movement will lose credibility. I think that Kejriwal has done a terrific job in waking up the people. But protest movements have a limitation. They will wake up people, but then unless you move to the next stage and present solutions, and the solution, one of the solutions here is to present a coherent path for judicial reform. That when you must, the fact that it takes so long is a function of a failure of the judicial system. And there are very good remedies that have been recommended by different commissions on how you can speed up justice. Because what people want to see is at least somebody go to jail.
Can I stop you? Are you therefore saying that because Kejriwal is concentrating on exposes and not taking that further step of suggesting solutions, he's titillating, but he's not actually providing a platform on which people can join and take his own cause further? In other words, he needs to go further and he's not prepared to do that, or he doesn't realize he needs to do it. Is that the full point you're making?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm saying precisely that what we need now is the reform of our institutions. Not a single party, not a single politician is talking about that, and Kejriwal has that empty space. To having done this exposure, if he's talking about a political movement, he would play a very positive role if he now suggested that this is the steps, this is the program forward.
Okay. Subramanian Swamy, one of the things I noticed is that Kejriwal's exposes, when they began with Vadra, then Gadkari, or Aaj Tak's expose of Khurshid, got a lot of front page treatment, and it was news right through the night. It happened on television. In contrast, your expose of Sonia and Rahul hasn't had the same response from the press. Is it because there have been too many exposes, or do you think the press is somehow biased against you?
It's not biased against me, but I think the press is amenable to pressure. And since I have many members of my family who are in the press, I get an inside view of that pressure works, whether it works through an SMS or it works through direct telephone.
Can you be explicit? Pressure from whom?
Pressure from the people in authority.
They are the Congress party or the Gandhis directly?
Yeah, well, of course, the Gandhis definitely there, but they have their hatchet men who perform the role.
Can I interrupt and ask you this? How come that pressure didn't apply when Vadra got exposed? Because that was front page news repeatedly for a long time.
Well, I can say that, that there is an explanation for that. Do you want to hear that explanation?
Very quickly, yes.
Well, I think Mr. Vadra is not a very popular man in the Gandhi family. And there is, we know, I mean, you will say that I'm getting into personal matters, but there is a separation process going on, and there's a division of property on which has become very messy.
So you're being Machiavellian. Are you suggesting the Gandhis actually saw it in their interest to allow the stories about Vadra to hit the front pages?
That's right, that's what I'm saying.
And they didn't see the same thing when you attacked Sonia and Rahul?
Well, in my case, they know I'm after them. I'm not after the people on the side.
Preeti Menon, do you think that the point made by Gurcharan Das, that these endless exposes without taking that critical necessary next step, suggesting a solution, is not going to fulfill a purpose, and it will titillate only to eventually frustrate the very people you want to bring on board your cause?
You know, Karan, it's a very sorry thing, but the intellectuals of this country are disconnected from the masses. Okay, they're all running scared because of the halabala we have created, and they're not willing to recognize the thousands and lakhs of people gathering in Farrukhabad, gathering in places in Maharashtra over the irrigation scam. So there's huge mass support for the movement. Every day, different people from different parts of the country are coming to us with scams which they want us to expose. They're coming up with RTI documents which they have incredible proof against various politicians. So this is a mass movement, you know, this is not Kejriwal alone. But yes, I think you'd like to simplify the issue and say, okay, Kejriwal is standing up, making something, running away. It's not that. It is an entire movement of the people which says, bring down these false idols.
All right.
Bring them down. We've had enough of idolizing them and behaving their leaders. They're not. They're scamsters.
And it's very possible that you will in fact be the icon breakers that India needs. Let's take a break at that point and come back and ask the critical question. If they are going to be icon breakers, whether it's with Kejriwal, we're talking about a Subramanian Swamy, they need to have mass national support. But do they? Or are they just limited to the big cities, perhaps even to just the four metropolises? That's the issue after the break. See you in a moment's time. Welcome back to The Last Word. We're discussing Subramanian Swamy and Arvind Kejriwal. Do they have national following, or are they just limited to urban India? Preeti Menon, let me begin by putting that to you. You're really just an urban phenomenon, aren't you? Probably restricted to the middle classes, and that's full stop where you go.
Well, Karan, that's what most people of political parties wish. But the truth is that this is changing and changing fast. Yes, we grew from the urban areas. We were largely Delhi-centric, North and Mumbai. We were not even so much in the South. So, but it's changing by the minute. I mean, if you see what's happening in Uttar Pradesh, in Farrukhabad, the way masses joined, I think it must have been the first political rally which was so huge and which was not paid for. So, this is changing. And in Maharashtra, there is so much anger against the irrigation scam and the land grabbing.
Okay.
The people from remote villages are touching base. So the network, as I see it, is growing in every single village.
Okay.
And it will take time, no doubt. We don't have the kind of, political parties are entrenched for years. And therefore they have an amazing network. It will take us time to get there, but we are getting there.
Gurcharan Das, you heard Preeti Menon talk about Maharashtra. She talked about Mumbai before that. But the truth is, last December when they went to Mumbai, ISI actually met with a disaster. Equally, when they tried to influence the by-elections in September last year, they had no impact. They had no impact when they tried to influence the state elections earlier this year. So would you say that outside Delhi, they actually have a pretty poor track record of attracting support?
Well, I wouldn't say that. Actually it's the media that is giving them the national attention. And you have to remember that the urban middle class now, the new middle class, is about a third of the country. And in a decade, it will be half the country. So it's a very potent force. And it's middle classes who make history and change the world. So don't dismiss this because you think it's limited to a few people. I mean, look at Lenin's movement, was a tiny movement of the Bolsheviks, and look what they did.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we don't want this.
Absolutely, as you said.
We don't want them to be Bolsheviks.
From little acorns are big oaks grown. Unfortunately, Dr. Swamy, your little acorn is probably just limited, not even to the urban middle classes, but to those who read newspapers. And many middle class people consciously don't read papers. Do you have an even bigger problem when it comes to mass support compared to IAC?
Well, you see, your ignorance is profound because you have never contested an election, so you don't know what the people in the deep interior think. I have, in fact, contested one semi-rural constituency, the city of Madurai, where the city is a small part of the constituency, and the rest of it is all villages. So it's not, the concept of mass support is overdone. For instance, Jawaharlal Nehru never won by more than 50,000 votes. Ambedkar fought 3 Lok Sabha elections and lost deposit in all 3. So I don't know how does one measure mass support.
You mean you will be a great leader despite the fact you don't have popular following?
I don't know what you mean by popular following. You see, the issue is this is what you journalists come and keep talking about. But the fact is that we have a parliamentary system. Each of us has to represent a constituency, and then we come together and collectively decide who's going to be the leader.
I think neither Arvind Kejriwal nor Dr. Swamy need mass support. As long as the people perceive them as weapons of mass destruction of the infamous Baghdad fame, their potential remains intact to create tribunals.
You mean like Saddam Hussein, the reputation or the ghost is greater than the reality?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But let me put something else to you, Professor Pant. Could it be that the greatest impact both Arvind Kejriwal and Subramanian Swamy will have is actually in the constituencies of the people they target? Subramanian Swamy may well undermine Chidambaram and Shivaganga. Arvind Kejriwal may well undermine Salman Khurshid in Farrukhabad, although it's a moot point whether either will undermine Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi in Amethi and Raebareli. But leaving those two out of the equation, do you think that's where their greatest results will be, in the constituencies of those they target?
Now that you say, in a very interesting way, they complement each other. Arvind, as you said, most people would perceive as hit and run, but here would be the ambulance chaser, so to speak, who will take everybody to the cleaners in the court. And people would say that this is probably going to be a case where some hope is there, and I would go back to that, as long as people think that they can hit and draw blood, you don't have to worry about the killer instinct of either, although Dr. Swamy has enough killer instinct. As long as you can let a hemophilic bleed, and people perceive that the present leadership is a hemophilic leadership, as slight as a scratch is bad enough.
All right, on that very colorful note, even if it was somewhat gory, I will let you have the last word. My thanks to Dr. Swamy, who's laughing and clearly enjoying himself. My thanks to Dr. Pant for joining me. My thanks also to Preeti Menon and Gurcharan. If you have been, thanks for watching. See you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Goodbye. Good night.